So it was the Qatar Grand Prix this weekend, and you might remember. So it was 2021. F1 signed this deal with Qatar it was a 10-year contract worth. So it's actually the most lucrative race in the whole F1 calendar. So Qatar pay £45 million each for each race just to have the right to host it. And you can imagine like the F1 bosses got lured in by that cash. It's a bit like FIFA. You know, they promised them these luxury hotels. You can imagine it's like helipads in the infinity pool, and they probably promised them that they'd get Salt Bay to do the trophy presentation. But what they forgot to factor in is the weather in Qatar. So it's hot. It's hot. It's in the middle of the desert, and you can imagine driving this like pumped up supercar with whatever the G-force is going around these corners in the middle of the desert. Like apparently the temperatures in the cockpits on Sunday reached 50 degrees.
Fuck it.
Which, you can imagine.
And you're in a helmet.
You're in a helmet.
Full body
kit.
It's
tough enough driving an F1 car in normal temperatures. But it was a lot of the drivers were really, really struggling with the heat. So Esteban Ocon, the Alpine driver, threw up in his helmet apparently on lap 12 as well. It's not even like on the final stretch. Like he drove most of the race just like swimming.
Well, what do you do when that happens? Can you open the visor and sort of like?
I don't know, because can they do that?
Well,
is it just sort of like dribbling?
It probably just dries on your neck. Yeah, we've all been there. Normally wake up in that condition.
Yeah, and there was another driver, Logan Sargent, had to retire from the race because it was intense dehydration and heat stroke. Right. So he just had to pull in. There was another one, Alex Albon, was taken into an ambulance afterwards for acute heat exposure. And Lance Stroll, a Canadian driver, came out afterwards and said that he was basically like drifting in and out of consciousness as they were going around the tracks. Like he'd kind of pass out, and they're taking these corners at like 200 miles an hour.
What, and he's like,
just like drifting off.
Jesus. Are they angry or are they just like?
No. So Lance Stroll said he came out and said this was beyond the limit of what is acceptable. So I think normally the Singapore Grand Prix is the one that's known as super intense, really humid, really hot, but this apparently was another level.
Yeah, the talk of dehydration is reminding me. Zach wrote an article for our paying email subscribers on Sunday about the 1904 Olympic marathon, and there's a lot of amazing bits. There's like people being made to drink rat poison and like being chased by wild dogs. People like napping during the race. But my favourite bit is that at the time there was this theory called purposeful dehydration, where they thought that drinking water made you worse at running. So there was only one water station for the entire marathon. It was in 35-degree desert heat. A bit like the race.
Yeah.
And there was only one water station at the 12-mile mark. Mental.
The competitors, the runners, were led around the track by automobiles, which had just been invented then, and it was this sort of really dry, dusty track. They started the race at 3 p.m, like midday heat, and these cars are just like churning up dust. One of the runners had a stomach hemorrhage from like inhaling too much dust. It's
sadistic stuff.
It's a very, very mad story, which we'll do a podcast on at some point.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
we'll do it in more detail.